March 28, 1986. For the guards at India's maximum security Tihar Jail, it was supposed to be just another Friday, but within the walls of Ward 3, a celebration was brewing that would soon turn into a national nightmare. Charles Sobhraj, the man the world knew as the Serpent, wasn't just an inmate, he was a predator who had turned the prison system into his personal playground. On this afternoon, under the guise of celebrating his birthday, Sobhraj offered the guards a gift: trays of succulent sweets and fruit, laced with a lethal dose of sleeping pills. As the sun began to set over New Delhi, the Bikini Killer and 6 of his associates simply walked out of the front gates, leaving behind a trail of unconscious officers and a security scandal that would rock the foundations of the Indian government. This wasn't just a prison break, it was a masterclass in manipulation, a cold-blooded conspiracy that proved even the highest walls couldn't hold a man who knew exactly how to exploit the weaknesses of the human heart. Before we dive deeper into the chilling details of how one of history's most notorious serial killers vanished into thin air, remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of the Calendar of Crime. Your support helps us keep these dark archives open, bringing you the most infamous stories from the criminal calendar every single week. The story of the March 1986 escape actually begins years earlier, with Charles Sobhraj's arrival at Tihar Jail in 1976. Born in Saigon to a Vietnamese mother and an Indian father, Sobhraj was a stateless wanderer who had spent his life refining the art of the con. By the time he reached India, he was already wanted in multiple countries for a string of murders across the hippie trail of Southeast Asia. He targeted young Western backpackers, drugging them, robbing them, and often leaving their bodies to be found in remote areas. In India, his luck finally seemed to run out when he was caught attempting to drug a group of French tourists in a New Delhi hotel. But for Sobhraj, prison wasn't a dead end, it was a new theatre of operations. Inside Tihar, Sobhraj was treated less like a prisoner and more like a visiting dignitary. He used his hidden wealth and natural charisma to bribe guards, secure a private cell with a television, and even have gourmet meals delivered from outside. He spent his days studying law and his nights entertaining the very men paid to keep him behind bars. By 1986, however, a new threat loomed. His 12-year sentence in India was nearing its end, but a far grimmer fate awaited him: extradition to Thailand, where he faced the death penalty for the murder of several tourists. Sobhraj knew that if he walked out of Tihar a free man, he would be immediately handed over to Thai authorities. He needed to stay in India, and to do that, he needed to commit a new crime that would keep him in the Indian legal system for another decade. The plan for the escape was as calculated as any of his murders. Sobhraj didn't just want to leave, he wanted to make a statement. He began by smuggling in massive quantities of lorazepam and other powerful sedatives, hidden inside ordinary items. He coordinated with a network of associates on the outside, including a British drug smuggler named David Hall. Together, they planned the logistics of the getaway, securing vehicles and safe houses. But the centerpiece of the plot was the birthday party. Sobhraj convinced the prison staff that it was his birthday, a claim that was technically false, but one the guards were happy to indulge given the promised feast. On the afternoon of the escape, Sobhraj presented the guards with large boxes of paidas, traditional Indian milk sweets, and baskets of grapes. He watched with a predator's patience as the men responsible for his incarceration happily consumed the drug treats. Within 30 minutes, the effects were undeniable. Guards began to slump against the walls, their speech slurring before they collapsed into a deep, drug-induced stupor. Sobhraj and his chosen group of inmates didn't have to scale walls or dig tunnels. They took the keys from the unconscious officers, unlocked the gates, and walked out of the main entrance of Tihar Jail. The scene left behind was one of utter humiliation for the Indian penal system. When the evening shift arrived, they found their colleagues scattered across the floor of the guardroom, snoring loudly while the prison's most famous inmate was nowhere to be found. The news hit the headlines like a bombshell. The Serpent was loose, and he had made the authorities look like amateurs. A massive nationwide manhunt was launched, with police checkpoints established on every major road and images of Sobhraj plastered across every newspaper. The public was gripped by a mixture of fear and a strange, begrudging fascination with the man who had pulled off the impossible. While the police searched the borders, Sobhraj was playing a much more subtle game. he didn't flee the country immediately. Instead, he traveled across India, staying in mid-range hotels and even visiting tourist spots, often wearing a simple disguise of a hat and glasses. He was spotted in various cities, but he always stayed one step ahead of the law. His goal wasn't just to hide, it was to be caught on his own terms. He knew that every day he remained at large in India, his legend grew, and more importantly, the clock on his Thai extradition was ticking. The escape finally came to an end on April 6, 1986, in the coastal state of Goa. Sobhraj was sitting in a restaurant called Oko Cairo, enjoying a meal and a beer, when he was recognized by a police inspector named Madhukar Zende. Zende had arrested Sobhraj once before, a decade earlier, and he never forgot the killer's face. In a dramatic confrontation that looked like something out of a movie, Zende walked up to the table and simply said, "Hello, Charles." Sobhraj, ever the charmer, didn't resist. He surrendered peacefully, his mission accomplished. By escaping and being recaptured, Sobhraj had ensured he would be tried for the jailbreak, a process that would take years. This new legal battle effectively blocked his extradition to Thailand until the statute of limitations on his crimes there had expired. He had traded a death sentence in Bangkok for a few more years in a familiar Indian prison. It was the ultimate con, a life-and-death gamble that Charles Sobhraj won. He would eventually be released from India in 1997, only to be arrested years later in Nepal, where he finally faced justice for his past crimes. But the legend of the 1986 Tihar escape remains the defining moment of the Serpent's career, a day when a killer used a box of sweets to bring a nation to its knees. Thanks for watching. Please comment, share, like and subscribe for future episodes from the Calendar of Crime.